Hello.
Hi there.
Long time no talk, Miss
I
Amy.
I know. Yeah,
You you what?
I'm trying to figure out this camera on my screen up here. I'm like going, I haven't used it yet.
Are you joining us on your lunch break?
No, because it's only 9 a.m. here, so
Oh, on your breakfast break?
I'm on my whatever break.
Okay, cool. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being
Maybe.
here. You see your old friend Cheryl, Amy?
I do. I talked to her this morning.
Excellent. So in the interest of time, we are going to start, and I thank everybody for being here and taking time with us today. I will just let people in as they come in, okay? So Debbie, if for any reason somebody, or if somebody messages on Facebook they can't get in, I'll be checking that, just ping me. Okay, so we're talking about holiday meal planning, and the web store team has some really great tricks and hacks over the years of us learning how to manage our weight and learning what works and what does not work. We want to share some of our tips with you guys so that you can have some food for thought and set up yourself for success this holiday season. So if you've been listening to some of our other webinars, what you know is we've talked about some basic things, and I want to just hit those real quick. Make sure you do your maximum drinks. You know, the best offense is a good defense. And if you're just full and your blood sugar is stable and you're not struggling with cravings, it's just going to make this much easier. So if it's not a normal part of your routine, I would really encourage you on these types of heavy food days, wake up, make all 4 of your drinks. Or if you're a man or a vegetarian or a woman over 200 pounds, make 5. But make them up and then be sipping on that starting as soon as you wake up. Okay, just so that you can really have stable blood sugar and feel satiated. The second thing I really want to encourage you is get on your herbs and vitamins now, because they take a minute to get into your bloodstream and really work full dose. So this is not the time that you want to be skipping around, taking them one day and not taking them for 2 days. We want to get into a good, steady routine so that you can get the most bang for your buck there. And then finally, when you decide what you're wearing for the holidays, please wear something form-fitting. Ideally, something with a button right in your belly button. So when your stomach starts expanding, you're very conscious. Don't show up to holiday dinner in yoga pants and leisure wear, because it will be very hard to feel this, expansion. You want to sort of look your best, look great, and just be cognizant of what that feels like in your body. So those are some things we've talked about before that we wanted to real quickly hit again because we thought it was important. But now I'm going to turn it over to the rest of the web store team to talk about some of the things that they have found works really well. And I'm going to start with Cheryl. Cheryl's family is doing some heavy hors d'oeuvres this year, which you said, Cheryl, that might actually be more challenging for you than a sit-down meal. Is that right?
Absolutely. The sit-down meal does nothing for me. You throw in the party food and party girl shows up. I mean, I love some heavy hors d'oeuvres, but what I've committed to this year is doing things differently. Whereas I might have, well, I know what I did last year. I made these little ham and cheese sandwiches, and it's got a lot of butter and what's that little seed? What's it called? The little seed that you put in stuff. Anyway, some kind of little seed, not celery seed.
Sesame seed?
Poppy seed. Poppy
Poppy
seed. It had poppy seed and onion flakes, and then you spread it on the little tin. They're little tin trays of rolls. You cut them in half, and they're just yummy. You put Swiss cheese on there and the ham, just delightful, but not good for the thighs. I'll go ahead and tell you. So what I'm doing this year is I'm going for the dips. And one might cringe going, oh, we can't do the dips, all that cream cheese. This is true. This is true. But my hack, or it's not my hack, it's a metabolic hack. Hack is using cottage cheese to replace cream cheese. And you can almost do that in everything. And Claire, you said earlier, and I hadn't thought about this, but the Greek yogurt, substituting that for sour cream based dips. But my 3 are, 2 of them have the interchanged with the cottage cheese versus cream cheese, and it's the queso dip, and it's really yummy. I've had that before, but it uses the cottage cheese, and then it has pepper jack and jalapenos in it. And then I can use my Melba toast for a better choice than chips, or I can use that to dip vegetables in because I like cheese on my celery. So that works out well. The second recipe that I'm going to do is the buffalo wing dip. And I've had that before and it's good. And it does the same thing. It takes out the fat of the cream cheese that the typical recipe would call for, and uses cottage cheese, dry ranch dressing, Frank's hot sauce, and the chicken, and a couple of other things. But it's in the cookbook. The first one's in the cookbook on page 22 in my cookbook. The buffalo wing dip is on page 13 in my recipe book. And then the fourth thing is the artichoke heart dip, and it's on page 12 of the cookbook. And it has artichokes, tomatoes. It's got Parmesan cheese and just regular hard block cheddar cheese in it. It does call for the MRC mayonnaise, but I will probably not make up the mayonnaise this time just because of time. And I'm going to use light mayonnaise instead. And then it's got garlic powder in it. And that just sounds delicious. And I could eat the whole bowl right now. It's next time for this old girl.
It's making you hungry.
So, yes. And, you know, like I'm staying away. I'm going to continue to stay away from the sugar. But my past few experiences have been physically painful to me. And when I say physically painful, when I intake refined sugar, it wakes me up at night with shooting pains in my feet. I don't know why it's just my feet, but I mean, it wakes me up at night. So I'm associating sugar now with your feet's going to hurt tonight, girl, if you have that sugar. I do have to bake a red velvet cake this year. So, and we do it from scratch. My mother has solicited me to help her with this. And I am not going to do the BLTs. When she says, taste that batter, I'm going to say, no, ma'am, I can't. You taste that batter. It's going to make my feet hurt. So that's my plan for ours Christmas Eve. And then we go over to my son's house after that and just kind of socialize. And we just exchange gifts and have a good time and just socialize. So that was about it for me.
That sounds great. So one of the nice things about hors d'oeuvres, I would say, is when you're trying to be diet conscious, it is an easy thing that you can make and bring. If you're going to somebody else's place, that you can control what's in there. Or, you know, having a number of them, you can feel full and they're kind of all of those are low carb. And I would add to that mix that Cheryl said, deviled eggs. Deviled eggs are a great way to be on program and have something that feels special. And I would also add pimento cheese. You know, pimento cheese is something that can feel special, and you can do it on the Melba toast or on a celery stalk, however. But so I like dips when you're trying to manage the low carb because you get a lot of options. You do need to manage the dippers. So, you know, for me, the Melba toast or the 40-calorie bread that you cut into slices and bake, maybe with like a little garlic powder on it, would be really nice. Does anyone else have any other dip ideas, things that they use for dippers?
I mean, definitely raw veggies, but as far as chips go, I'm a quantity over quality, right? I want as many as I possibly can for a low calorie amount. At Metabolic, we typically operate on a 50-calorie principle. We really like to keep our carbohydrate serving, especially when it comes to toast and crackers, to that 50-calorie limit. And there is a brand called Good Thins. They're also gluten-free as an added bonus. But you get, granted, I know they're about that long and about that wide. However, you get like 17 for 50 calories. So for me, that's 17 bites with something crunchy that I get to eat in a dip that I make. You know, so that's a really good option. Definitely choose your crackers wisely. You don't want to waste it on Triscuits where you get like 2.
I'm sorry. Are they called Good Thin? Good Thin.
I wrote them in the chat. I wrote them in the chat box if anybody wants to see that. Yeah, I think it is important to know, are you a quantity person, or would you rather have one or two, you know, or is it the quantity? I think that's a great observation to make, Mariah, just kind of knowing who you are, being honest with yourself. These are my tendencies. This is what I tend to do. And then setting yourself up for success. I think that one of the veggies that people forget about a lot of times are cauliflower and broccoli. And
Mhm.
you can even buy those little florets pre-bagged and washed if you wanted to save yourself the work, but they're sturdy enough that they really can handle a dip. And
Yeah.
even the buffalo chicken dip tastes really good with like a cauliflower, you know?
I'll actually add, I was stunned because I guess I have had raw veggies platters that have like raw squash and raw zucchini. I think I maybe kind of stayed away from that. I'd more be a cucumber, broccoli, cauliflower, carrot, grape tomato fan, right? But raw zucchini really doesn't have a flavor and it's quite sturdy, so you can actually, it
Slice
can
it
hold
thick.
it,
Slice it thick.
but it also has, very lenient flavor. So it just kind of takes the place, so much so that I don't know if you guys have done this before, but this is an appetizer I've made when I've been trying to stay on program, is zucchini boats.
Yeah.
And so you take your zucchini and you cut it in half.
Those are
And
the
I
best.
actually even cut those in half as well. I like them smaller because then they're a little bit more sturdy because, as it gets cooked. And you scoop out a lot of the zucchini and put it to the side because we're going to use it. Nothing wasted here in this recipe. And then you get a nice sugar-free tomato sauce. You can choose to add meat. I do it easy and I just do cheese and sauce. But you mix that sauce up with some good fresh basil and seasonings. And then your low-fat ricotta, which is virtually the same exact nutritionally as low-fat cottage cheese. So you mix that in and put that in with the actual zucchini that you scooped out. You go ahead and mix that all in a bowl, put them back in your zucchini bolts and top with some mozzarella and bake them. And now you have like these delicious and really warm and hot and flavorful little snacks. So just as I talked zucchini, there are things.
Yeah, Amy and I talked on Friday at the webinar and we talked about the raw zucchini and squash, right? Because they are just really, really neutral. And the nice thing about having the veggies with your, like, I get sick of salads. I don't know about you guys. I mean, I like a good salad, but I am not one of these people that wants to have a grilled chicken salad every single day for lunch. That's just not who I am. And, for me, having the vegetables with dip is a far more interesting way to get my veggies in, but those veggies have a lot of fiber. So, you're snacking on that broccoli and that cauliflower and those little bites add up, right? And it's helpful. I mean, again, the name of the game on some level is just keeping our blood sugar stable and keeping ourselves satiated so that we feel like we're having everything we want and that we're not, we don't want to feel deprived. We want to feel like, yum, this was fabulous, right? So I think those are some really great appetizer ideas. One more that I thought of while Mariah was talking is potato skins. And I know potatoes are like, too many carbs, but if you take a potato and you scrape all the potato filling out, leave that for somebody else, right? Or maybe if somebody in your house is making a mashed potato or something like that, if you scrape all the pulp out, you can spray that with like butter flavored Pam and put some shredded cheese in it and bake it like a potato skin. And it's extremely low carb, very, very, very low carb.
Yeah, crowd pleaser.
The skin on the potatoes has all the nutrients. So you're getting all the fiber, you're getting all the nutrients, you're not getting all the sugar. And if you load it up with the cheese, and I'll even put some green onions on them after they come out of the oven, you can do like fake bacon bits or vegetarian bacon bits or, regular bacon, just try to be nitrate free or no bacon, if you want. But like, again, the Greek yogurt can be like that sour cream sub, or you could cut sour cream half and half if you wanted to, experiment a little bit if you're dipping your toes in. But the potato boats are really, really awesome. And they are low carb if you get that pulp out. So be thinking about that. I think, go ahead, Mariah, we can say something.
I was just going to say that I think too, the easiest way to think about it is just think protein, right? Our safest bet with a lot of the snacks that we want to fill our table with are going to be protein and vegetable based. As you see, we're subbing for cottage cheese. Well, cottage cheese is very high in protein, and we're subbing for the ricotta, which is high in protein, and Greek yogurt, high in protein. Doing things like turkey meatballs, you can get a sugar-free barbecue sauce, maybe even typically sugar-free for me, because obviously they have to, there's a give and take. So sometimes it's a little too sweet, even though it's sugar-free, because they're trying to kind of mimic the taste of sugar. that I usually like to add in a little mustard into my mix. That way it just kind of thickens it up a little bit, cuts the sweetness. And boom, now that's an easy thing you can have in the crock pot. And now you have turkey meatballs, that you can serve, to your guests, or even just make up for yourself. And then that's just an easy thing that you can have each day during the holidays. Because I think that's something we have to talk about too, is sitting down at Christmas, right? That's one thing. But we also have all of these holiday gatherings. And we also have this entirely busy schedule where we're trying to pack so much in that sometimes food preparation takes a back seat. And that's where temptation really tiptoes its way in, because I'm really good if I know when I get home, I already have my meal all ready to rock and roll. If I'm getting off of work and I know I have to thaw my meat, I have to cut up my vegetables, I have to get it all prepped up. Like I have nothing, no part of my meal is already kind of a grab and go. I'm going to be more likely to possibly want to stop somewhere on my way home, or the worst case of both for my stomach and my wallet is order a delivery service where I charge, I get to pay an extra $15 to go off of my diet. And, because it's easier, so I think preparation too, some of these things that we're giving you as things you can make for Christmas, they're also just really great meal preps. The buffalo chicken dip that Cheryl talked about, make that and just eat that for lunch for a few days, or the spinach and artichoke dip casserole, or even deviled eggs. You can have some deviled eggs for lunch. You can use these recipes really all the way through,
Right. And they're tasty. They're very tasty.
They're very tasty. And I think to Mariah's point, I know maybe a heavy hors d'oeuvre holiday situation is not traditional. And I am a little bit in agreement with Cheryl. It's easier for me to sit down and just sort of have small portions of a traditional meal because that's not my favorite, versus having all these great dips. But the flip side of that is all the great dips, because they are low carb, it's not as much of a struggle. You can eat it and you can feel good about it and not worry about it. So I think that's a trade-off. But the one thing I'll say about the dips is I work from home and it's hard to take a lunch break. And so normally if I'm eating lunch during the middle of the day, I'm just going out to the refrigerator and pulling something out and just kind of eating it while I work. So those dips are very nice as well for that, to be able either to take to your office, or if you're working from home, just be snackable. So those are some hors d'oeuvres that have worked for us. I would like to turn now to Erin, and not because she's the only one that drinks alcohol. We all, I'm sure, partake from time to time, but we do want to, Amy's like me, but we did want to, I like a good cocktail. So we do want to make sure we give you some hacks, and Erin had some really good hacks that have worked for her. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Erin and let her share one of the things that she's been, using to manage her weight.
I'm glad I'm not alone in the alcohol.
As I was introducing you, I was like, that sounds kind of weird.
Yeah, I'm like, hi, I'm Erin. But yeah, so when we all love to drink for the holidays, and my family were big drinkers, but I'm 4'9" and I just can't hang. I'm really tiny. And if I've got 2 drinks, I'm not fun anymore. So I've had to learn how to hang out with the family and control myself. And so one thing that I really like to do is just drink soda water. I love White Claws. So that's kind of what made me start drinking soda water, because I used to hate it. And then I started drinking, and White Claws are basically the same thing except with alcohol. So I just realized soda water makes me feel full. It kind of gives me that same feeling. I'll put it in a koozie. I feel like I feel like it's no different. And one thing you can do too, is Cheryl had mentioned to me, and I think it's a fantastic idea, is adding it with the protein drinks, and you can kind of mix and match the flavors, and you can put it in a wine glass and it's kind of like a spritzer. So you're getting full, you're getting your protein intake, you're not feeling like you're missing out on anything, which is a really hard thing during the holidays. And Mariah actually she's made this really great blog last week and talked about, people who, what did you call them? Feeders, Mariah?
Feeders. Mm-hmm.
And there's people who push you during the holidays. We all have that person in the family that's oh, we'll Uber home, or, why aren't you drinking? Drink with me. It's just one drink. And there's so much peer pressure. So, I think that just having something in your hand really helps to kind of avoid that as well. So So
Hey, where can they find that blog that Mariah wrote? Because it was really good.
Yeah, it's on the metabolic web store. It's on under our blog section. So.
Yeah, weightlossmrc.com under the blog.
Okay, I'm gonna put that in the chat box over here.
You know, while you're doing that, I'll share. I actually had a client once that, you know, so obviously a lot of our mocktail recipes that we have are really great, but they're not necessarily like the quickest to whip up, you know, to do an actual mocktail. We were adding in a few ingredients. So, I mean, you're not trying to like cause attention to yourself as you're doing like a science experiment, you know, in the kitchen with all your different packets and such. So I had a client and she actually brought just a little pitcher. It was one of those like plastic Tupperware pitchers, you know, that had the lid. And she went ahead and made up her little cocktail. And she knew that she had 3 of them in there. You know, she knew she had 3 cups full. And she actually, for that, she did a holiday sangria. So she mixed the pomegranate and mixed the mixed berry, and then did a 0-calorie lemon lime soda. And then some people wanted a little less sweet, would just do soda water, you know, that way it's unsweetened. And then she actually put some fresh fruits in it. You know, she put some apples, she put some berries, and, you know, that was her hot. So then she just went to the fridge and would pour it. I mean, no one was none the wiser. Everyone thought that she was having cocktails with everyone. And more importantly, she felt that she was having cocktails with everyone. You know, I mean, you're not missing out. You know, I mean, I do the same thing on a regular night. I'll put Diet Coke in a wine glass because I like holding a wine glass. Wine is definitely one of my drink of choice. And so at least it kind of gives me that same hand feeling, the habitual feeling of having the wine glass. The problem is I could chug down some Diet Coke really quickly. So thank God it's Diet Coke and not wine.
Here we go.
Well, something else to think about with alcohol, if this is something that is in your family holiday, you know, traditions, is maybe you can think about setting up, if it's at your house, alcohol in a different zone. You know, so instead of having we have a great big island in my kitchen. And so typically everything gets on the island and then people serve themselves. This might be a situation though, where if there's another space to have alcohol, so that, you know, it's a special trip to go over there and do that. And it's not visually right in your line of sight. Yeah. I think that's very, very helpful. I also think, you know, playing a game with yourself, if you are going to have a drink, look at the clock and notice what time it is. And maybe you don't get to have another drink until it's been an hour or 2 hours, you know,
Space them out.
Right. Like if your decision is I'm going to have 2 drinks today, but I'm getting over to my Aunt Susie's house at, you know, 1:30 and we might be there till 9 p.m. When are those going to happen? Because the thing with alcohol is a lot of people will say, and especially with the White Claws Aaron brought up, oh, it's low calorie or it's only 100 calories or it's 0 carbs. Okay, that's great. And that is a better choice than having like a strawberry daiquiri, right? For sure, it's a better choice. But alcohol is alcohol is alcohol. And at a certain point, when you've consumed enough to lower your inhibitions or to sort of change the way you're thinking, you're not going to be as in control once you're 3 drinks in. So whether it was just 300 calories and no carbs, it still could potentially wreck the rest of your food choices for the day. So really just being mindful of, you know, once you get on that alcohol train, how do you moderate that? How do you stop it? Right? Or how do you limit the damage? Okay.
Another suggestion I have with my clients is, you know, if they tell me I'm going to drink, that's just all there is to it. I encourage them to do a 16.9 bottle of water in between the drinks.
Yeah.
Hydrate your body again. Because alcohol is very dehydrating. So that's kind of one of the games. And looking at the clock, that's something that I haven't thought about, which is a great idea. I will be suggesting that too.
And of course, making good choices of which alcohol it is that you are going to incorporate. You know, I mean, that is going to make a difference. Mixers are one of the easiest things that really ups the ante on those drinks. You know, a lot of people, if they're doing like a whiskey and Coke or, you know, a whiskey and ginger ale or anything of that matter, even some sweeter red wines and white wines, you just want to be pretty cognizant on what you're drinking and what you're mixing with it. I'm not condoning this. All right. So this is my warning. This is not a encouragement. However, I may or may not know some clients that sometimes would mix their protein drinks with some alcohol to help the protein drinks balance out the carbohydrates and sugars in the alcohol. I don't know.
Cheryl, we've never done that.
Never.
I don't know.
I will tell you
Okay,
something.
I just wanted to
I
say it.
have suggested that to mine as well, and choose something like vodka, you know. And I'm sorry, I'm just gonna put it out there because
Yeah.
people are going to drink. And
Yeah.
and I said use the mixer. Your H&S is now a mixer.
Yep.
So
And let's
it
not
works.
have four H&S with 4 shots of vodka. Let's not.
Right.
Right. No,
Well,
no,
you
no.
don't need a lot. You just really need like if you do soda water, you just do a little dash of your pomegranate or a dash of your, you know, whatever flavor or whatever, and boom, you have a flavor. A lot of clients will do Mio flavor water drops with water. So then they're not even getting extra sodium. Mio, you know, it's to the point. Water, Mio, and vodka, it'll do what you need to do. Now, one rule, and Claire knows this rule of mine. I've had this rule for a very long time, and it does serve well if you
Great.
follow
I'm going
it.
to type it in the chat box if you guys can see before you
All
say.
right.
You
Can
hang on,
either.
hang on,
Okay.
let's type it first. You can't. And is this what you're about to say?
You can't eat and drink carbs. You have to choose. You can either eat or drink your carbs. Which one are you going to do? Right. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be a toss up. You know, I mean, listen, I'll be honest. I definitely, if I'm making a decision, I'm usually going to choose to have a cocktail sitting down at dinner, and I will forego the potatoes and, you know, any of the carbohydrates. You know, it just, you know, but I'm not saying always. There might be some carbohydrates that could tempt my interest that I would change that decision. But, you know, that's a really good strategy to keep yourself from getting into trouble of really overdoing it on the carbohydrates. So, you know, it's just something to kind of be mindful of. It's something as a maintenance rule that I've always tried to follow. And it's not to say that I've never had, let's say, pizza and beer at the same time. But that's a very, you know, that's a not as an occurrence. If I know that I want to drink alcohol, I try and stick with protein and vegetables. If I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been craving pasta, I haven't had it all month, I want to have a really nice Italian dish, I'm going to probably have Diet Coke or unsweet tea, you know, along with it. I try and make that distinction between the two.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so let's continue to move on, because I know not everybody is apparently as alcohol oriented as our group. But I do think alcohol is a real deal. And I will say this, I appreciate everybody talking about it, because this is one of those things that clients don't always share with us.
Yeah.
It's like, we know it's happening. We know people are doing it, but sometimes people feel a little bit like, you know, I'm not going to talk about that. So let's just, you know, put it out there. It's a real deal. This is a real thing that people have to, you know, make choices around. And we're here to support you. So whatever your choices are, we're on your team. Like, we're always here for you, and we can help you if you let us know what, you know, reality is. So I am glad that we got to address that. I would like to turn to desserts, because some people have sweet tooths, and that can be challenging. And of course, the cookbook, you guys, I've been putting some page numbers here in the chat. The cookbook's got all kinds of amazing recipes. And I think tomorrow, I think the warehouse is guaranteed that any orders that go in by tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern will be delivered by Christmas. They're not willing to guarantee it after tomorrow, just because of, you know, FedEx and all that. But they are pretty clear that anything by tomorrow at 2, they feel very confident will get to you before Christmas. So there's lots and lots and lots of recipes in here that require stuff, but we also have some simple things, just like, you know, maybe think about having a cheese platter, maybe thinking about some fresh berries with some fat-free Cool Whip, right? Maybe thinking about, Mariah, you were talking about cinnamon apples. Can you talk about that?
Oh yeah, it's favorite thing to do. I just literally get whole apples. I chop them up nice and thin. Basically, smaller they are, the gooier they're going to get, because we're not going to use oil and butter in this recipe. And I put them in a baking sheet, and I just line the bottom of, not baking sheet, I apologize, a casserole dish. And I line the bottom of it just enough for water to coat it. That way, like if I'm holding it steady, there's a thin layer of water that's on the bottom of the pan. And I throw those apples in, and I put in cinnamon and whatever artificial sweetener, non-calorie sweetener. You do Splenda, stevia, Truvia. And I mix those all up. I bake them covered at about 400 degrees usually for 20 minutes, and then I uncover them and bake them until they look about done, because it does depend on my size slices. But then I know that if I put 5 apples in, I'm going to go ahead and pull out 5 as equal as I can servings. Not every apple is equal. So just try and get your, however many apples you put in, that's how many servings, you can pull out, if it's just for yourself for desserts during the holidays. But it's a really easy thing to just make, for your family to have on the table. Cause then it's like an apple pie, just without all the carbohydrates.
Like a crustless.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea. And, I was thinking about when I was actively on program, I really loved mixing the creamy hot cocoa protein powder or the double chocolate pudding protein powder in cottage cheese. There was something about mixing that into the cottage cheese that made it so much more filling, and it tasted like chocolate cheesecake. But again, crustless. And that, you don't have to bake and set up and whatever. If you want to put it in the blender because you don't like cottage cheese texture, that's fine. But you could even do that with Greek yogurt. Get plain Greek yogurt and throw that powder in. It just gives it that thicker, creamier, chocolatey. That's all you're wanting, right? Is that fix.
Yeah, broiled peaches as well. You cut your peaches in half and cut the skin off. And then you do some sweetener and then some cinnamon, and you put them in the oven, and first put them on bake. And then at the end, you just kind of put it on broil to get them a nice little brown on top. And you can do a dollop of the fat-free Cool Whip, and so they all each have a dollop, and that's a really good dessert as well.
I would say with cookies and brownies and these little bite-sized things, think about Halloween. When you have that little Snickers that's this big, don't you feel like, oh, it's just a little tiny Snickers. I can have a little tiny Snickers, right? But then if you're like me, then you end up having like 15 little tiny Snickers, which is really like the equivalent of having 2 giant Snickers bars. Right. So, it's totally like messes with your mind, right? And I feel that way a little bit like with the cookies and the lemon bars and the brownies and all of those things. It's like, could I really have one? Could I really have half of one? Or is this going to turn into, a big dessert showdown? So same as the alcohol tip, if you are lucky enough to be hosting the meal, maybe set up the dessert station somewhere else, right? So that it's, again, a destination, and that's where you have to go. I don't know about y'all, but I like to socialize around the holidays. Usually socialization's happening in the kitchen. So it's helpful for me if alcohol and desserts are not in the kitchen because then we can socialize and enjoy ourselves. But, you have to make that extra trip. It's less likely to just be mindless eating. Yeah. If you love cookies and you love cakes and the thought of this is crazy town, then I'm going to encourage you to maybe think about taking a to-go plate. Maybe you get some things that look good, you pack them up, and you can take them home and you can, ration them out or stick them in your freezer or whatever you need to do so that you don't feel deprived. But I think the cookies and cakes and the brownies, those are a little bit more challenging for me. Does anybody have a good hack for how to get around those sweet temptations?
Run away. That's all I got.
Pain that it's going to cause me later, and because the older I get, the more painful refined sugar is to my body. Inflammation, whatever it is. But I mean, knowing that I'm going to have to be awakened during my sleep with shooting pains in my feet, that's what I associate it with. Sugar is now pain where it used to be pleasure. It's now painful.
So if you have something that you can associate with it, I think I just have to be really honest that, I'm a sugar addict. I have a certain threshold of sugar that I can handle and be in control. And then when that threshold gets crossed, it's a lot harder for me to stay in control. And I've just learned over the years that it's easier for me to sort of stay in my lane than it is to get out of control, because I'll justify anything. I'll sit there and say, oh, well, I'll have these three cupcakes or these 3 cookies, and I'm going to run 2.5 miles more tomorrow on the treadmill. No, I'm not. I just at this point am old enough to know that's a lie. Not going to happen. Don't even, act like it's going to, because I used to believe it, and then I used to tell that to myself to make it okay. And then I would spend 2 or 3 days feeling gross and puffy and bloated and sort of judging myself for not honoring that commitment. So now this is a food that does not agree with me. This is not going to put me in my best, position. And one of the ways that I like to think about it is there's certain foods I really don't like. So think about, what's a food that you just don't like that other people do like? Can anybody share something with me? It's like really like gross to you.
Cherries.
Cherries. Okay. So don't like cherries. What else? Somebody else throw something out at me.
Meat.
Okay. Meat. I feel this way about green peas. Like, I don't really like green peas. And so because I don't like them and they don't really feel great in my body, or the cherries or the meat, just because they're available, I'm not interested in eating them. I can easily skip over peas, right? You could probably easily skip over cherries, right, Debbie? Or skip over the meat, Erin. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So, when you start putting the cakes and the cookies in that vein of like, these just don't agree with me. My body does not like the way these react with my body science, my body chemistry. I'm just going to skip them, that can be really helpful.
So
well.
I did want to say there are 2 cookies that I have had from this cookbook that are absolutely phenomenal, but
All right.
unfortunately with their phenomenalness, they require some steps to make, right? Of course, to actually be tasty, they're going to require a little work. So first is the meringue cookies. And I swear to God, I thought I was eating actual meringue cookies out of that little
those
plastic
are
tin.
good. Hey, do you know what page that's on?
So unfortunately in my cookbook, they're going to be on page 282, but this is the
old
second
cookbook.
to last edition.
Hang
But
on.
it is the meringue cookies. You just use 3 egg whites.
197. I've got it down here.
Perfect. You use an 1/8 teaspoon of cream of tartar, little drop of vanilla extract, drop of almond extract, and some artificial sweetener. And that's what you're going to whip together, and boom, you have some meringue cookies. And then there's the snickerdoodles, and snickerdoodles uses our vanilla cream pudding and an egg and a 1/4 cup of oatmeal. What you just blend the oatmeal up to make it your flour, and then you're going to mix in the egg and the vanilla cream pudding, and then you're going to bake them and do a little nutmeg and allspice, and boom, you have snickerdoodle cookies.
Yeah.
So those are some good. And again, I'm not saying let make a whole tray for all your friends. I'm saying, why don't you make some of these up, put them in a baggie? That way you have something that you can kind of go to and have. So even if that still means you have one of those treats from that table, maybe you're able to just have one of those treats at that table because you kind of got your fix elsewhere.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing those up. And those are both very, very delicious for anyone that's cooking. One more just kind of dessert thought is the root beer float.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I like about root beer is it's caffeine free. So for anybody that's sensitive to caffeine, I also like using drinks as a way to prolong the experience, right? Like you always feel good when you're putting something in your mouth and it tastes good, and things like the floats or the soups or stuff like that, it just takes longer to consume. So the root beer float is as simple as get a diet root beer and stick it and blend it with a vanilla pudding. And it tastes just like a root beer float. It's very, very satisfying. Okay. So that's one more idea for you guys. Okay. So we've talked about hors d'oeuvres. We've talked about alcohol, and we've talked about desserts. We've talked a little bit about just basics, like, show up in form-fitting clothes, look your best, feel your best, make sure you can tune into your body and not zone out. Make sure you're on your max water, your max drinks, your max protein. What else have we missed? What would you guys like to hear about or know about, or questions that you would like to hear from one of us, how we've handled? I'll give you a second to kind of think if you have anything. Okay, so if nobody has any, questions, and let's sort of wrap with, I would like to hear from the web store team. I will not put anybody on the spot. That's just coming to learn. What would feel like a successful Christmas Eve, Christmas Day for you this year? And let's just even lop in New Year's. Let's really think about how are those of us that are managing our weight and have been managing our weight for quite some time, what are the thoughts that go through our mind? What do we think about that helps us really make the holiday about the holiday and not about the food, and what's working for you and what are you going to go into this holiday looking forward to? Mariah, can I put you on the spot and start with you?
Yeah, well, I mean, you just said it right there. It is just that it's the holidays about being with the ones that you love and showing that you care and being grateful and cherishing, what we have. It's not about the food, unlike what society tells us. But I think it's easy for me to say that, but that's also because I've gone through this journey, right? I've gone through this MRC program. I've gone through this maintenance, and that's truly what's taught me that food is fuel, not fun. I mean, food is what literally, Aaron said it earlier when we were chatting, that it's a means to an end, right? It's just, I mean, it's something that we need to fuel our bodies. And it took me a long time for that light bulb switch to happen, because for a long time, I would gratify myself with food. I was always looking forward to that next meal. And I think, when you really kind of think about that, food's purpose is to simply, give us our energy and sustain us. Why would I want to put something in my body that's going to do the entire opposite effect? And I did it so much. I mean, just like Cheryl said, foot pains. Now I didn't have foot pains, but I'm talking the food comas I put myself in, the food babies I'd give myself because I would just eat so much and my metabolism just was not kicking enough, to really be able to offset it. And I think for me, I just want to be transparent saying, like, we understand if that light switch hasn't happened yet, but we can start the process today by really looking at this holiday as just one Christmas. If there is something, man, you're really feeling like you're missing out on, it's just one day. And to be honest, there's never a right time to lose weight. I mean, there's always going to be something that comes up. I think we're pushing through this holiday season so we don't have to work this hard next holiday season, and kind of give that to yourself as a light at the end of the tunnel.
I like that. And I just want to piggyback on that real quick. At the end of the day, let's be really honest. Being overweight is not the problem. Being overweight is not the problem we're trying to fix. Being overweight is a symptom that you might be stressed out. You might be overworked. You might be tired. You might have some medical stuff going on. You might feel lonely. You might be depressed. The weight is the symbol that something's out of balance, right? And so as we get back into balance and as we begin to integrate like my body, my fuel, like all the things Mariah is saying, the weight is going to come off because we're going to change the way we're in a relationship with food. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so I really like that thought, is that even if you weren't trying to lose weight, you would still want to eat a certain way to make yourself feel good, right? Mm-hmm. And to be at your best. It's not just you're wanting to do this so that you can drop 5 pounds. You're wanting to do this because you deserve to be healthy and strong and accomplish all the things that your heart desires, right? And you just can't do that when you're run down in a food coma and your joints hurt. You just cannot do that. So, go ahead, Mariah.
I was just going to say, and I'll tell you, I remind myself this lesson many a times when I decide to digress back into, old habits for one meal, I mean, because it happens, right? We're still human, I choose when it's worth it, but boy, I'm reminded why I try and pick and choose. Cause I mean, I'll just be the whole next day, I'm so sluggish. And then I find myself craving so many carbohydrates, like just an absorbent amount because I gave it to my body again. And it's like, it takes weeks to finally get rid of it, but man, it only takes one bite to put it right back in.
Right.
That's really true. So who else on the web store team? Thank you, Mariah, for sharing with us. I really appreciate it. Would like to just share what what's a successful holiday look like for you this year?
I'll share. I'm going to revert back to what I did at Thanksgiving, except I am going to eat this time. I'm not doing the whole fasting. But, for me, just about my entire family is overweight. And I'm a weight loss coach. But, until they ask for help, you can't impose that on someone. Right. So I think for me, being the example of I can control how many and how much hors d'oeuvres I stuff in my very tight pant self that day, because I'm going to wear the tightest pair of pants I've got. But, and just being an example to let them know you can do this. If I can do it, Anybody can do it. It's the truth. And I also want to be sure I keep that mindset of I am eating to live, no longer living to eat on any level. Sugar, because I'm a big old sugar addict. Food, like we're getting like the real food, like I like hors d'oeuvres. I just want to make sure that I'm putting enough, like Mariah said, fuel in my body to get outside and play wiffle ball with my granddaughter.
Mhm.
Because if I go and I overdo it, there's going to be a couch calling my name shortly thereafter. And I don't want my holiday to be that way. I want this to be memorable for her and my great nieces and nephews, that we get out and we have fun. I remember that year when Gigi got out there and played wiffle ball. That's what I want. So that's the way I see my Christmas this year.
I love that. That's really great. I think a lot of people can relate to that. Absolutely. Erin, Debbie, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you have something you'd like to share, it would certainly be helpful.
Yeah. I will just say, I hate to be the guy to bring alcohol up again, but I will say, it's a real struggle. But yeah, it kind of with the food though, it's the same thing. I mean, you overindulge in the alcohol and the next day, I mean, you feel like a bus hit you and you do eat bad, not only the night of, but the next day, and you're not gonna be, you have that New Year's resolution, but you drank all night the night before. You're not kicking off the new year with that resolution, right? So, I want to go into this next year and I mean, even before the new year, I want to start my new year I want that resolution to start before the new year and just choose to make better decisions, happier choices, and just, and just, let that go, let the alcohol go, drink my soda water and make healthier decisions, because nothing good comes out of that. And, it leads to empty calories and poor decision making and really just painful next days.
Which a lot of times the next day, the only thing that makes you feel better is French fries and a burger and stuff like that. So it's not just the alcohol, right? It's
in a dark room.
It's the next day piece of it. Yeah, I think, every time I've done like a dry January or a dry November, these things that people do, I'm always struck with like, nobody cares that I'm not drinking. Not one person cares. Literally nobody cares. As long as I'm not lecturing them on their drinking, nobody cares that I'm, not. And I always have fun. I always have just as much fun. It's not like alcohol adds anything fun to the evening. In fact, my husband and I were talking one time and we were like, I can name on one hand, I'm 47 years old, he's 51. We can name collectively on one hand how many times alcohol truly made an event better. But we have so many things that countless nights where we can count where alcohol made it worse. So, I think we get bombarded with messages on the TV, the advertisements, the imagery of like alcohol equals fun or alcohol equals sexy or alcohol equals party. We got to sort of retrain that.
Maybe it's alcohol helps you deal with your in-laws. Who knows? It's just whatever that sugar is for everyone.
So Erin, I do really appreciate you, talking honestly about that. And I think for me personally, my goal this holiday is maybe like a lot of you over COVID, being at home, being homeschooling, working, everything, all the uncertainty, not being able to go to the gym. I just feel like there's some extra weight that crept up that has now been removed. And I'm tired of COVID. I'm just tired of it, and I have been really aware just with, 10 pounds off, which is not a ton of weight, but it's 10 pounds. I feel more like myself and I feel more energetic. I like the way my clothes fit. I just feel better. And so there's this piece of like, I'm going to go through the holiday. I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to have a big old time. But I'm not going to use food for anything other than, this is the reason why we're all gathering, and I'm going to enjoy the gathering more than I really care about the food, right? I'll eat. And then when I'm full, I will stop eating. And then I'm going to use all my tricks to keep myself super full all day long. Because that really works well for me. So anybody else want to say anything before we close up? Okay, so we have a coupon. You need to give us like 10 minutes to get it in there. I'm hoping somebody on the team will go What do we want to make this coupon? It's a $10 off coupon. We're going to call it what? Meals?
Yeah.
That work? I'm going to type it in the chat box so you guys can all see it. So everybody that's attended the webinar, you have a $10 off coupon, but you do need to give us 5 or 10 minutes to get it set up on the back end because we don't do these in advance. Thank you so much. And if this was helpful for you, will you leave us a note on the Facebook page and just let us know? We are really wanting to do more and more things that just, spread all of our collective knowledge out so that it can get out there faster and be beneficial to you. So if this was helpful, drop us a note so that we can look at doing more of this type of stuff. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to get on the group. You can reach out to any one of us. I'm Claire at eMetabolic. Cheryl at eMetabolic. Mariah, are you Mariah at eMetabolic? I mean,
MRC Mariah at eMetabolic.
And then Debbie runs our web support at eMetabolic. So we're pretty easy to get a hold of if you need anything. But we will see you back next Tuesday. And if you have anybody that needs to join us, bring them along, okay? But if y'all don't have anything else, we'll say bye.
Bye.
Hi, everyone.